What's shaking, everyone? So I can't believe we're actually here. We are on the eve of the first presidential debate, and I am super excited to see two men in their 70s bicker back and forth semi-coherently over a bunch of different issues that decide the fate of the free world. I hope you guys are ready because I don't know what exactly to expect. I know it's not going to be the bloodbath that Trump supporters are hoping it's going to be. Not going to be these, and it's not going to be this situation where Chris Wallace totally holds Joe Biden's hand like he's going to his first day of grade school. No, it's going to be something in the middle, and I think we're going to be in for quite a treat. And we've got the 6 topics here that Chris Wallace himself has picked, and we're going to go through them and hopefully kind of surmise what to expect here tomorrow night. Hey, I said it before and I'll say it again. I'm quite excited for this, but before we dig into it, I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to click on this video here. It means a lot to me, and if you have anything that you'd like to discuss in regards to the channel, any of the news topics or sports topics that you'd like for me to hit on, feel free to drop them in that comment section down below as well. While you're down there, if you don't mind hitting that subscribe button or just dropping a like on the video, it gets my channel out there more if you appreciate what I'm talking about and all the topics that you want covered. I will try my damnedest to do that for you. So let's go right ahead, lay out what we're in for tomorrow night. So Trump and Biden debate Tuesday. Here's what you need to know. So the only housekeeping I'm going to do is just to set up the format. So it's just going to be these 6 topics here, and they're going to be bandied about for about 15 minutes, give or take, between Biden and Trump. The whole event is supposed to take around 90 minutes because I think that's all Grandpa Joe can probably stand to do. And I use the term stand loosely, but here's the 6 topics. I don't know what order they're going to be in. Nobody does. The only person who does is the aforementioned Chris Wallace. So what's going to be discussed? Trump's and Biden's records, the Supreme Court, COVID-19, the economy, race and violence in the United States cities, and the integrity of the election. Those all seem like very good topics, very complete topics, and pertinent to the times that we live in right now. So let's run these down one by one. So the question he could ask for Trump and Biden's record. So let's run these down one by one. So Trump's and Biden's records. What can be attacked on both of those guys? Based on my information where I did the little research for the previous Chris Wallace video that's on the channel here, he is quite adversarial when it comes to Trump's opinion of the media. Whether that's based in merely a personal bias, I don't quite buy that, but I think that might be what he wants to attack Trump on. Mainstream media at large likes to paint Trump as the anti-truth, anti-media candidate, and Chris Wallace has been one of the most vocal voices on that, so I could really see him pressing on that topic, because outside of the previous 4 years, there's nothing that you could press Trump on that would be relevant to the debates. But as for Biden's record, you can go all the way back to the early 70s, which is insane to think about. I mean, one of the biggest blemishes that you could possibly attack Biden on, based on the other topics that are going to be discussed in the debate here. Joe Biden's record on school desegregation busing explained. Former vice president once called busing an asinine policy. Well then, the second round of the first Democratic primary debates on June 27th, including a revealing and at sometimes tense discussion of race between several candidates. Here's one of the great things about this article, the only great thing that I'll ever say about Vox. A defining moment was when Senator Kamala Harris, Joe Biden's running mate, for those of you with short-term memory loss, took former Vice President Joe Biden to task over his recent comments about segregationist senators, as well as his opposition to using federally mandated busing to racially segregate schools in the 70s. She pointed directly to how busing affected her life as a young child. So that kind of hits 2 birds with 1 stone. This is something that Trump can absolutely press Biden on. The fact that he was against, well, segregation or desegregating the school system in the early 70s and was against using federal funding for busing to create diverse public schools. As you see that there's classic Joe Biden tactics at play in the article. I did not oppose busing in America. Biden, who represented Delaware in the United States Senate from 73 to 2009, responded, wow. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed. Well, I have a previous video on the degradation of Joe Biden's speech patterns, and it leads off with a clip of him speaking directly about the desegregation of schools and the busing crisis itself. That is not what he was against. He was not against the Department of Education. What he was against was the segregation of schools because he didn't want, and these are his words, animals running about in the schools that U.S. citizens would have their children in. Now, a lot is made of the quips that Joe makes, like they're gonna put you all back in chains, or man, he sure is a young, sharp, articulate black man. I don't think Joe Biden's a racist. I just think that he says some weird racist shit because he's fucking 77 years old. He's an ancient man. And the things that he's been saying have been consistent throughout the years. So unlike a lot of conservative pundits out there, I'm not going to drag him for that. I just think that he's a misguided old man from a bygone era. Not much else to it. So probably the most highly contested topic currently at the moment would be the Supreme Court. Now, we all know that ACB is nominated by Trump, and her process to being confirmed as a Supreme Court justice looks to be quite expedited. Now you hear Dems and the left screeching about how this is an unprecedented factor and this has never happened before. Just look at what they did to Merrick Garland at the end of the 2016. Well, what's very important to realize is that Barack Obama appointed Merrick Garland, and the Senate at the time, which still is, was a majority Republican Senate. So Merrick Garland, like Amy Coney Barrett before him, was nominated by Barack Obama, and the responsibility of the Senate in this circumstance is to either confirm or don't confirm the nominee of the president. It is set there as a check. And what also separates the two situations is the fact that Obama was coming to the end of his second term. This was in the final year of his second term. Barrett's nomination is coming at the end of Trump's first term, and it's a Republican Senate. Draw all the conclusions that you like. The fact of the matter is there's quite a few significant differences between the two scenarios. And that's what I believe Chris Wallace is going to try to press Trump on when it comes to the Supreme Court. The fact that he's moving this along at a Anthony Weiner speed freak pace, and that this is, and I quote, an unprecedented time for the Supreme Court, even though there are several cases where this exact same situation has come to pass, maybe not in the same amount of time, but it's not unprecedented to say the least. And what you're hearing right now is a lot of these, McConnell said this at the end of 2016, where it wasn't fair that a president gets to nominate a Supreme Court justice in the final year of his presidency, or his term rather. Well, Joe Biden also had a couple of significant statements when it comes to the Supreme Court. I have another article pulled up here. So there's the McConnell Rule or the Biden Rule, the politics behind the Supreme Court pick. I'll save you all the intro reading. Their opposition centers on the insistence that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky set a precedent 4 years ago when he and the GOP Senate blocked a vote on Democratic President Barack Obama's nominee, Judge Merrick Garland, the presidential election year vacancy created by the death of Justice Antonin Scalia. One other difference is, within hours of Scalia's death, Barack Obama nominated Merrick Garland. And the time frame on this was in March he was nominated. And we're all quite aware of the fact that the presidential election, the general election itself, doesn't take place until November. So that's a legitimate gripe. There's still a significant amount of time, but this is a lifetime appointment. It is something that should be taken seriously. And with the split houses, irregardless of what side that you sit on the fence, it doesn't much matter because Merrick Garland probably wouldn't have got past the confirmation hearings. Tough titties. The so-called McConnell Rule has been cited repeatedly in the past weeks by Democrats who insist the Senate must wait until after the November 3rd election to vote on confirmation, a position backed by 2 GOP senators, leaving Republicans with a maximum of 51 votes to confirm with a little margin of error. Now, those 2 Republican senators, I want you to commit them to memory. Alaska Senator Murkowski and Maine Senator Susan Collins. They are rhinos and McCainites who deserve to be voted out at the next available opportunity. Don't forget those people in Alaska and Maine. If the nomination is delayed and Democrat Joe Biden somehow stumbles into the presidency, it would allow him to nominate a candidate to fill the post instead of Trump. Or all of this is just theater for the fact that I truly 100% believe that this would just end up delaying the inevitable anyways, and ACB would get nominated, confirmed, and appointed, and at a later date regardless. So with that background out of the way, let's take a look at the aforementioned Biden rule. But Republicans have countered with the defense of their actions both in 2016 and now in 2020, citing a speech in 1992. Once again, a nice current example of how long Joe Biden's been in the fucking Senate for. Jesus, get a real job. The chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. So somebody you should be probably taking a fair amount of stock in their words over. Biden then warned that if Republican President George H.W. Bush, who is dead now, Biden then warned that if Republican President H.W. Bush sent up a nominee to fill a vacancy on the High Court, the Democratic-controlled Senate should not confirm or fill the seat until after the election. At the time Biden spoke, there was no court vacancy, and his speech centered around a hypothetical opening with a divided government, a Democratic Senate, and a Republican president. A year after the speech, President Bill Clinton appointed Ginsburg to replace a retiring Byron White, who had retired. Now imagine that. Rules for thee and not for me. And the fact of the matter is, there is no McConnell rule. There is no Biden rule. This is just politics at play, guys. You don't have to listen to these two old crusty fucks' opinions on anything, really. What it comes down to is the fact that Senator Harry Reid passed a motion in the last time that the Democrats controlled the Senate in order to remove a 60-vote majority in order to confirm a SCOTUS nominee. And now it's coming back to bite them in the ass. All you need is a majority. And let's just say hypothetically, the other rhino that's currently sitting in the U.S. Senate, we all know his name, Mitt Romney, a man who has frequently talked about how much he despises Trump. If he decides to flip and say there's a 50-50 stalemate, well, guess who breaks the tie? That would be Vice President Mike Pence. So all of this is theater, and that's it. So let's get back to the topics. So COVID-19. What Chris Wallace is probably going to ask is, how well does Trump think that he has handled the virus, considering there are over 200,000 dead and cases rising at a record pace? What more could he have done? Did he downplay the fact that he knew that COVID did a lot of keep trotting out the exact same dead old lines? And Trump will just have to hit back with the fact that there is a near 100% survival rate for everybody under the age of 70. New numbers just brought out by the CDC, in fact, a few days ago. And even the most vulnerable, I use vulnerables in quotation marks, population of the over 70 crowd is still over 95% to be surviving the commie cough. That's how he's just going to have to hit back. Listening to their vaunted experts on all of these situations is just leading to the fact that Trump shut down travel early when nobody thought it was popular. And in fact, I have some evidence for that. And it just so happens to be from the mouth of Joe Biden. If he remembers this, I'll at least refresh his memory for him. Trump's coronavirus has been nakedly xenophobic. Go figure. Former Vice President Joe Biden on Monday accused President Trump of fanning the flames of hate, fear, and xenophobia against Asian Americans during the coronavirus outbreak. Speaking virtually, which is basically the entire tenor of his campaign so far, to the Asian American and Pacific Islanders Victory Fund, Biden said the president has been slow to respond to the pandemic. Oh, and that he had only offered the public denials, delays, and distractions, many of which were nakedly xenophobic. Including that travel ban, the one that he's referencing in this speech, that Trump laid down at the end of January before any cases had made it to the U.S. shores. Now, I bring this up because it's important. Biden has retracted these statements and walked it back and has since gone on the attack saying Trump hasn't done enough. But let's be honest. If you were in charge, how would you have taken control of it? I have not heard any sort of plan from the other side of the aisle as to how they would have handled it better. All they're doing is just criticizing Trump, which is what they do with everything. They don't have a legitimate way to attack him on his policies, so they'll just make up these nebulous, unquantifiable claims in order to justify their bitching. So this is a point that Trump should win absolutely hands down. There is no conceivable metric that Joe Biden can win on the economy when it comes to President Trump and what he's done. You can even look at the rebound that's happened after the COVID lockdowns. I have some more information pulled up. First of all, we have the unemployment stats, and I have it all the way back to 1995, and Joe Biden has to bear a lot of these statistics as well because he was in fact vice president for the preceding administration. Likes to say that he was vice president for, but he doesn't like to take any of the follies and any of the faults that happened during the Obama administration. It tends to lay squarely at the feet of a divided House and a divided government, and it was never anything to do with the divisive and unpopular policies that Barack Obama continuously pushed through. But anyways, we will take a look at the grid right here. So this is all unemployment rates, and it's unfair to look at anything prior to right about there was where the Barack Obama Joe Biden administration took over. You can see that unemployment rates were steadily going down, and then what happened there? It looks like the massive collapse of 2008, and to their credit, it did continue to trend downwards all the way until when Trump took over right around here after a small uptick. There is no other point on this graph where the unemployment rates go down at a more steadily decline until, of course, the COVID shutdowns, which spiked up at around 15%. But also note the sharp decline. The absolute madman got it down to just about 8% within months. And had there not been a COVID lockdown, we don't know how low the unemployment rates were going. Everything you can see basically from this graph here showed that everything was trending down. Could it have been sub 3%? It's hard to say, and it's impossible to say, in fact. But that's not the only metric in which Trump wins on. We can look at GDP per capita. And this is what this graph explains right here. So obviously, individual incomes will increase over time due to a multitude of factors. But as everything is carrying up on a relative steady incline, it immediately jumps and then drops back down in, take a look at that. 2009, after the housing crash, after all of the bailouts that Barack Obama and Joe Biden paid off to all of those multinational corporations that were, and I quote, too big to fail, right? But I'll be fair, they did continue to climb just at a slower rate than most people. And then you see in 2016, you have a salted earth where there was only, 1.9% increase over the previous year. Which, they did great. They did great. But then you look at 2017 when Trump had a full year, 2018, 5% growth, and then another 3.6% growth. We won't know until the end of the year what the GDP for 2020 is going to be. But of course, it's going to be slightly skewed with COVID. But all the projections look positive where it's not going to be negative growth. So if you want to tie this into Joe Biden's record and you want to take a look at the record of Trump, who is stronger on the economy? I've showed you a couple of statistics, and we all know that every expert out there, and we all know that the left loves their experts, proclaimed that the economy was the best of their lifetimes under Trump. So he is absolutely the Teflon Don on this point. And then we have race and violence in U.S. cities. So the eternal question is, has Trump done enough to curb the violence in the U.S. cities based on the killing of George Floyd and the shooting of Jacob Blake, blah, 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 blah. But let's not mention that the fact racial divide was inexorably expanded under the Barack Obama, Joe Biden administration. But we'll lay that at the feet of Trump because he said some mean things about Mexicans, right? The way that the mainstream likes to paint him as saying that all Mexicans are rapists and they're illegals and he wants to build the wall and blah, blah, blah. Dude, with all this tax information or the tax questions continuing to come up, I wouldn't put it past Chris Wallace or any of the other upcoming moderators to drag up those old hat tactics. I'm just waiting for another pussy tape to come out, honestly, at this point. So how Trump hits back on this point is the incredibly low unemployment numbers for the black community, massive Latino support and black support, the fact that he has some of the best minority support for a Republican candidate, if not just in a long time, but in forever. And as for violence in cities, well, he's offered the National Guard to every single state out there that is facing nightly, daily, weekly riots. And he's also done his best to deputize state and local police officers by the feds in order for non-acting attorney generals at the state and local level in these cities to be superseded and have these felons charged with rioting and violence, arson and murder in some cases. But I think I've made this point in a video before. Just because all of the riots are for the most part calming down quite a bit, Joe Biden's going to take this opportunity to gaslight the entire public by saying that he was always opposed to the violence. He and his administration, or presumptive administration, have always been on the side of peace and order, without mentioning the fact that his running mate Kamala Harris was actively advocating for people to donate to a bail fund for felons. No, in fact, did you hear that Biden condemns violence on the left or the right, and he challenges Trump to do the same? I know I brought this up in another video that I've done, but the fact that he thinks that he's the only candidate to disavow violence on both sides and that Trump has been silent on all the violence is fucking incomprehensible. There are several concrete facts that we know about Trump. He's a gaudy wall sconce aficionado. He strives to one day be the replacement mascot for the Syracuse Orange, and he loves the armed forces and law and order. The fact that Biden and his campaign think that they could do the old switcheroo and make Biden seem like he's the law and order candidate is just the most blatant example of the arrogance of the Democratic Party. If Hillary's emails being out there in 2016 didn't completely remove the mask, this is an instance for me where it's been ripped off their faces and thrown across the 50-yard line. So without serious lying, I don't see an opportunity for Biden to come out ahead unless they really push hard on the race angle, which Trump does a great job of backing himself into a corner every time he's pressed on it. But Biden cannot win on the violence angle. Fuck, does anybody else remember when prominent Democrats were taking a knee wearing their kente cloths that were previously owned by African slave traders, by the way? But let's get back to the final point, the integrity of the election. Now, this one has been going on. This is just merely another repeat from 2016, where Trump was accused of not accepting the election because of illegal voter fraud, because that's definitely not a topic that hasn't come back into focus with mail-in voting this time, which we also have to keep a close eye on illegal immigrants voting as well. Just because mail-in voting has become the main talking point doesn't mean that illegal alien voting isn't a significant topic worth looking into as well, because that's a topic worth looking into another day. But I'd like to hypothesize that I think that the only reason Hillary Clinton won the popular vote in 2016 is from a vast majority of illegal votes, and that's the exact same situation that we run into this time, especially with mail-in votes, where I don't know if you guys heard, but there was a juicy bit of undercover reporting that was dropped yesterday evening, and it was covered by next to nobody, but it definitely implicates a bunch of, at least one, top Democrat. But what I've heard this topic is probably going to be about is accepting the results of the election. Now you have articles from The Atlantic and New York Times and Washington Post about what's going to happen if Trump doesn't concede the election. What if he stays there like a Hitler and he orders the military? It's not going to happen, guys. Take a fucking pill. If there's a legitimate reason to believe that most of the public is functionally retarded and is voting for an old man with dementia, then hey, fuck it. Trump will just pack his shit up and fucking leave. He did say that in 2016, and there's no reason to believe that that won't be the case in 2020. If in fact there is evidence to support that this mail-in balloting is honest, which, I don't know, just take a look in Paterson, New Jersey, where they had to throw out an entire city council vote, and the Supreme Court of New Jersey ordered it to be done over. I don't know, that's just one of many examples, but that's a good example of when 30,000 votes were disqualified for improper filling out and signatures not matching, which one of the coronavirus stimulus bills that the House pushed through, primarily Nancy Pelosi, included provisions to get rid of voter ID and signature verification for mail-in votes, as if it wasn't patently obvious that they aren't trying to steal this election. But there is only one side of this presidential election that's actively calling for an undermining of the integrity of the election. And I think you can guess what side that is. The old thick-ankle... Yeah. The old the old thick-ankle dog face herself, Hillary Clinton, says Biden should not concede the election under any circumstances. And she said that during her DNC speech. I literally can't have her on the screen anymore staring through my soul. It's super unsettling. I feel like I'm unsettling. I feel like I'm going to be taken after. Ugh. It's quite unsettling. It feels like I'm going to be looked after a Haiti earthquake. So those are the points. I think that this is going to be tailored to Joe Biden's proclivity to wander off in sentences, and the responses are going to be kept to a short and concise manner, and it's going to be just like bowling with the sidebars up. Everybody's going to be held, both of the participants are going to be held to a very stringent standard. And unlike the third presidential debate in 2016, Chris Wallace is going to be ruthless in keeping these guys at their time and not interrupting one another, because, man, Joe really can't handle any sort of confrontation. The last time we seen him debate was in March, and that wasn't exactly a stellar performance against Larry David's autism-stricken cousin. But I thought it was important to give you guys a little bit of a primer for tomorrow night's debates. I'm still looking forward to them. I still think it's going to be a shit show, but it's going to be a lot of fun and definitely worth the 90 minutes of brain cancer, brought to you by the good folks at Fox News. So before we end it, I just want to thank you all for taking the time to watch the video, and remember... So before we end this, I just want to thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. Hopefully you got something out of it, and if you did, feel free to hit that like button, drop a comment if there's anything that you'd like expanded on, or if you have any other opinions on the debates coming up. Other than that, I've been Khan Swaylo, and I want you guys to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.